hear me? Okay, good. Thank you, Delvin. All right. Okay, hi guys. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good evening to all of you. So thank you for attending to our Wednesday weekly sharing. So this is our second training for this week, and I hope you guys still have some motivation and also have some inspiration to get along with all of our training in Oriental. So guys, I don't want to talk a lot, and because this is not my session, actually this is Mr. Chia session, so I would like to invite our honorable speaker, Mr. Chia from the Chia and Partners, to share with us about the update for the RPGT. Oh, I tak hafal tapi itulah tajuk dia. So after this, Mr. Chia akan beritahu, will share to you guys about the changes in this RPGT. Okay, so without wasting our time, let us invite Mr. Chia. Dipersilakan Mr. Chia.
Hi, thank you, Lisa. Thank you all for joining today's session. I hope, is my voice very clear? Is everyone okay with it?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, all right. So thank you for joining today's session. So today I would like to just share a few on a few topics. So the first being RPGT updates. Second is a bit of Subsales, and followed by Tenancy. So maybe just a brief introduction about myself. My name is Wai Leong, or you can call me Leon if you prefer, because I think a lot of people do not remember Chinese names. I mean, sometimes I find it difficult to remember Chinese names as well. So if you prefer, you can call me Leon. So just a brief introduction about myself. I was called to the bar in 2010, and then I was in a big firm initially, where I worked for 4.5 years, and then later on I joined a medium-sized firm for about another 4 years or so. In total, I have about 11 to 12 years of experience. I mainly do conveyancing and a little bit of like corporate work as well. So, but because we major in conveyancing, so the first topic that we'd like to talk about is actually on real property gains tax, which is RPGT. I think, as most of you know, in 2019 there was a recent update to the RPGT. So even as individuals, we have to actually pay 5% of tax from the 6th year onwards. Sorry, there's a chat. Yeah, so for individuals after the 6th year, we still have to pay 5% tax. Previously, we didn't have to pay any tax after 5 years. And then for companies and non-citizens like foreigners and so on, there's still a 10% tax to be paid. So the recent change has actually affected quite a lot for individuals, because some people has owned properties for a while, and then suddenly there is this affected for individuals, because sorry, it's not I could hear myself. Yeah, so there is actually a recent update to the RPGT form, which is Real Property Gains Tax form, or more commonly known as the CKHT. So in this form, as you can see at item D7, previously there was no D7 in the previous form. So what D7 is that, if you can see, it says that you have to insert the consideration sum, which is after discounts or rebates. So previously, for example, when you purchase a property from developer, you need not have to declare or disclose what is the discount that is given by the developer. So in that sense, let's say if a developer, let's say if you take a property which is 1 million, and then let's say developer gives you 100,000 or 10% discount, so that would make your your actual purchase price as 900,000. And then subsequently, if after you have taken the keys and so on, and you decide to sell at, let's say, 1 million also, the same price. So you actually make 100,000 profit, but because previously the government didn't require you to declare the discount, so there was no tax payable at the time. But due to the recent updates, which is just in early of 2021, then the Lembaga Hasil realized that a lot of people were actually making money from the discounts given by developer but not declaring it. So in 2021, they have actually updated the form, and then they have specifically stated that we have to disclose the discount or rebates given by the developer. So in this case, actually, a lot of lawyers, we were caught off guard as well, because we were always submitting documents without declaring the discount for the customer as well, until the recent update. And then there were quite a few cases where lawyers were not aware of this update because we were not notified. And then we were actually imposed with like a 10% fine on the profit. So, but since there's this update, it is very important that, let's say if you purchase property from developer, to ensure that you keep a copy of the rebate form or the discount form that is given by the developer, because usually you will actually receive a copy of the form with that. This is important because, let's say in case the developer actually requires a copy for verification, then at least you have a copy. Okay, then just briefly on how to reduce the real property gains tax. As most of us know, if we pay legal fees to lawyers, we pay stamp duty, or we pay agent commission and valuation report, or if we have done any renovation to the unit, then all those are actually acceptable to reduce the Rpgt payable. So, and just one thing to note is that previously we, for our submission to the Lembaga Hasil for Rpgt purpose, previously Lembaga Hasil was able to accept like quotations, meaning that, let's say if you have received a quotation previously from your lawyer, and then they would just take the whole amount, which means that they will just look at the quotation and then see, for example, that the amount, let's say for example, including stamp duty, is 30,000. So in that sense, then Lembaga Hasil has previously actually taken 30,000, like the whole sum. But nowadays, Lembaga Hasil is like, probably they're thinking that, like, a lot of these items are actually not supposed to reduce your real property gains tax. So what happens is that they actually, instead of just your quotation, because quotation sometimes maybe your lawyer would have given you like some sort of the discounts, and and then so they actually want the invoice from the lawyer, just to ensure that whatever that is declared in the invoice is actually the sum that is used to reduce the Rpgt, rather than just a quotation which could be before discounts, or because it includes things like service tax and so on. So for Lembaga Hasil, they are actually very specific. They will look at your invoice, and not only they will actually remove the service tax from your bill, they will actually look at quite a bit of like items, and they will go item by item and say that certain things are not included. So for example, if you have actually previously bought the property and you don't have proper documents, then a lot of times, let's say even if you have just a quotation alone, then sometimes the Lembaga Hasil, they will actually not take into consideration the full sum, but they will take like the 50% reduction of the sum. So for example, if your quotation shows like, let's say 10,000 legal fees, then because you don't have like receipts and you don't have invoices, then they will likely take like maybe, let's say 3,000 or 5,000 as your legal fees. And in some instances, some officers have actually just rejected they will just reject your quotation up, and then they say, you need to furnish invoices or receipts to prove how much you paid. Okay, then just a little bit on subsale. So I think, as most of you know, like for subsale, the completion period is actually normally 3 months. So once we get, like, for example, if it's a leasehold property and you get your leasehold consent already, then you have like 3 months to complete the purchase of the property. But one thing to note is that actually not all freehold title has no consent. I mean, some freehold titles do have consent, that a restriction to transfer and charge. Also, like some leasehold titles actually does not have a leasehold consent. So let me just show you an example of one of our recent cases. So as you can see, this is a strata title. And then at the top left-hand corner, you will see that, it says Garan, which means it's a freehold title. And then as you go below, you will see like underneath Cukai, you will see like this pegangan untuk selama-lamanya. So this means that it's a freehold title. But if you look at the next page, if you can see under sekatan kepentingan, it says that tanah ini boleh dipindah milik, dipajak atau digadai setelah mendapat kebenaran pihak berkuasa negeri. This means that even notwithstanding that this is a freehold title, you actually need the consent of the state authority if you want to transfer or lease or charge the property. So this is like, so it does not mean that freehold titles do not have a requirement to obtain the consent. So sometimes, like, when we speak with customers, and then sometimes customers may say, oh, I have a freehold title, and they may ask you, okay, if I were to sell my property now, how long will I need till completion? So sometimes we may say, oh, since freehold title, then I'm sure there's no restriction, so it should be just the normal 3 + 1 month. So this is actually not true, but in most cases most cases freehold titles do not have a restriction. But this is just something to share. And then just these are just like some general procedures about, like, subsale transactions and so on, where normally we will conduct like land searches to ensure that the owner is actually the property, the legal owner for the unit. And then we will also do like bankruptcy searches, winding up searches, and so on. This is to ensure that, let's say both the purchasers or the vendors, they are not like bankrupts and so on. Because, like, if you're a vendor and you sell a property but you're a bankrupt, then you're not supposed to receive the proceeds of the sale. And if you're a purchaser, the bank will also do a search on you to ensure that you are not a bankrupt, so that otherwise you are not supposed to be holding like properties and so on. So after all these checks has been done, then lawyers will negotiate the terms. Then once the terms has been finalized, then we will sign the sale and purchase agreement. Then followed by applying for consent, leasehold consent, or let's say if the purchaser is a foreign national, then we have to apply for foreigner's consent. And then be followed by the completion periods and all these other miscellaneous things that we do for the customers, like filing of the real property gains tax forms. We will settle the redemption sum and so on. So, and one more thing to note is that a lot of times when we do like a subsale transaction, and sometimes the customer will be, they are always quite, they will always ask you like, okay, when can I actually receive my balance purchase price? So sometimes we may think that, oh, okay, as soon as the purchaser's loan is released, then we should, the vendor should be able to receive the balance purchase price. But this is actually not true, because let's say if the property has a title, so as with title, property, we have to do registration at the land office. So when we do registration at the land office, then we will, we will need to wait for the title to be registered. So as soon as lawyers submit documents to, like, title and other relevant documents to the land office, sometimes we have to actually wait for the registrar to say that they have no objection to the registration, because sometimes when there's like errors in the forms, because every now and then land office may change, their forms and so on. So maybe if you were to use a form which is that you used like 2 years ago, it is likely that the form is probably outdated. So because we have to actually wait for the registrar to in a way to have no objection to the registration of the transfer, only then we will release the balance purchase price to the vendor. So in this case, even though loan release to lawyers, we will usually wait like a 14 days period, because registrar has like, the land office registrar, they have like a 14 days period to reject documents, due to errors and so on. So this is something which will be useful, I guess, to, in case your customer asks you about this. Okay, and then as we go further down, this is just a little bit of like stamp duties and so on. So for the first 100,000 is 1%, then the next 400,000, 2%, then 3% and 4%. So there is also an example that I've put on the site, which is if the property is 1.1 million, then the stamp duty is about 20,000. And as for stamp duty for loan agreements, it's actually just 0.5%. Okay, and then for the third topic, I'd like to talk about tenancy agreement, because I know that a lot of agents and so on, you generally will do a lot of tenancy agreements on your own. So I mean, a lot of like agents have actually asked me like oh, like most of the tenancy agreements are usually like quite standard, right? So a lot of times, tenancy agreements will be prepared by agents, and then customers will sign it and so on, and it hardly goes through lawyers. So but a lot of times I would actually advise like these agents to actually ensure that the tenancy agreement actually fits the purpose for both the tenant and the landlord. So because sometimes there are clauses which are more general, but these are just a few examples of clauses that we may miss and which may cause our customers to lose money, and then in that sense, the customers may come after us and say that why didn't you tailor make the tenancy agreement to fit our purpose, and then now we lose money, and then we want to sue let's say the lawyer or sue the agent for this. So one of the first clauses that I want to highlight is actually on renovation. So like in this example, a company paid like 1 million ringgit to renovate a property, and then they pay like 100,000 monthly rental. So after the agreement has been signed, then this company goes on and renovate the unit for 1 million ringgit. And then 1 month later, the landlord finds another tenant who is willing to pay a 20% increase compared to the other tenant, and then the landlord just terminates the agreement. So, and then let's say the tenant goes after the landlord and says, no, you can't terminate the tenancy agreement, I've already put in 1 million in renovation fees. And then the landlord just tells this tenant that, oh, if you look at the agreement, it clearly states that either party, which means that either the landlord or the tenant, can actually terminate the agreement just by giving 3 months notice. So as soon as, let's say, you sign on the 1st of January 2021, and then I give you a 1 month notice. Sorry, not 1 month notice. On 1st of February, I actually just give you a 3 month notice. Then you have to move out within 3 months. So because the agreement states that, even though, because it doesn't state anything about, what happens if this tenancy agreement is terminated, what happens to the 1 million ringgit that the tenant has paid. So especially when it comes to like office or retail premises, then this becomes a lot more important, because usually if you rent out like a residential property, usually you will not you will not put renovation, you will not pay any renovation fees. Usually you will just take the unit as it is, so it may not affect you so much. But then if you were to rent out like an office or a retail premise, then there'll be a whole different whole different tenancy agreement that you should look at. So one of the ways to avoid such an issue is that the tenancy agreement should always spell out what happens to this renovation if the if let's say, for example, if the landlord decides to terminate, like let's say the tenant has not defaulted in rental and so on, but so let's say in this case that the landlord is not able to terminate this tenancy agreement, because if the landlord terminates, then they have to actually pay the tenant the renovation fees. So in this case, if we were to have this covered in the tenancy agreement, then it will protect the interest of the tenant. And then the second one would be on like renewal clause. So I don't know if anyone has heard, but there are some cases where they are being fought in court, that the tenant says that because of the drafting of the tenancy, that says that basically as long as the tenant issues a written notice to the landlord to extend the period, then they can perpetually renew the agreement. So let's say if the agreement does not state that let's say if the tenancy agreement states that you can renew the agreement by giving let's say a 1 or 3 months notice, and then it says that if it's based on the same terms and conditions, then you can actually perpetually renew the tenancy. So this is very bad for like landlord, for example, if they want to move, like they want to ask the tenant to move out, but then the agreement clearly says that the tenant can keep renewing on the same terms and condition. So in this case, the tenant can just perpetually renew, because when you go to court, the court will always uphold what is the intention of the parties. They will uphold what is written in the contract. So they will generally not basically try to interpret the agreement in a way that otherwise as agreed between the parties. So if this agreement, if this agreement were to be seen by the court, and then they will say, both of you agreed that they can just renew perpetually on the same terms and conditions. So the court may not interfere with this and allow perpetual renewal. So as you can see, the next solution to this is that to ensure that the renewal clause is very clear, that says that when you renew this agreement, it must be that the renewal must be excluded from your next renewal. So meaning that, let's say if it's a 1 + 1, it's just 1 year, and then you renew it for a further 1 year, and then the tenancy expires at that time, and you cannot perpetually renew it. So if you have such a clause that says that basically the terms on the same terms and conditions, save and except for this subclause on renewal term, then if you have this, then you are safe, in the sense that the tenant cannot perpetually renew the agreement.
Wai Leong.
Yeah.
Hi, Wai Leong. Delvin
Delvin,
here. Yeah, I think there is a question in chat room. I think
okay.
Lisa line is very bad. So maybe you can have a look at the chat room. I think there's one question there.
Oh, okay, sure. Just one question, is it? Hang on,
Yeah. May I know how much tenancy agreement preparation normally will cost, including the stamping fees? Will you charge SST on these costs?
Oh, okay. So tenancy agreement, there is a standard fee for it, which is 25% on the first 10,000. I believe it's 25% on the first 10,000. So if the monthly rental is like 10,000 ringgit, then it will be 2,500 for the legal fees. And stamping is a different calculation. So there is like a formula to it. So the formula is the monthly rental. So for example, if we take 2,000, so it's 2,000, then we multiply by 12, which is to indicate 12 months, so 2,000 times 12. And then we have to like, the formula continues. We take this full figure and then we divide by 250 and so on. So I can let you know the calculation later. I will write the calculation for you, the formula for you. And SST, yeah, SST is also chargeable on the legal fees. So, but of course, I think the reason why a lot of customers will actually not come to lawyers for preparation of tenancies and so on is because the legal fees that we charge is actually a little bit like substantial, like for example, let's say even if we were to talk about like let's say 4,000 ringgit monthly rental, then our fees alone will be about 1,000 ringgit. So it can be quite substantial. So a lot of people will not come to lawyers for drafting of tenancies. But if anyone has any issues with any of the tenancy agreements, or you're unsure about the clauses, you want us to have a look at it, then we're happy to help out without charging any fee. Okay, and then I think this is the last portion on clauses to look out for. So this is also pertaining to like a renewal clause. So a lot of times I've seen a lot of tenancy agreement that says that both parties are able to renew the tenancy for a further term. It usually says at the prevailing market rate. So at the prevailing market rate it's quite common because of course let's say if the rental for properties at that area has increased, so it is only fair to the landlord that he gets an increase to the rental paid by tenant. So but if we were to put it to just say that at the prevailing market rate, then it is not certain enough. Like how do we determine what is the prevailing market rate? Do we have to get like valuers to come in? Do we have to for them to calculate what is the prevailing market rate? And because it is a bit like ambiguous, so this may result in, for example, let's say a tenant wanting to have a renewal of the agreement, but he's not able to because the tenancy agreement just says prevailing market rate. So let's say if the landlord says no, based on my valuer, they say that the market rate is now 30% higher, then of course the tenant will come in and say no, but my valuer says it's 10%. Then we will not be able to reach like an agreement on how much is the prevailing market rate. Is 10%, 20%, 30%? So in this case, if you want certainty to it, meaning that a lot of times I will tell like tenants, for example, if they want to ensure that they can rent a property for like a further term, then what I'll tell them is that make sure that there is a cap to the next term renewal. So for example, let's say if let's say the tenant rents a property for 10,000 for this year, and then I will tell them that just put a cap of an additional 10%, or if the landlord does not agree, maybe he thinks that it could be higher. So at least you agree to, let's say, a 20% cap to the increase in the rental. So at least it's like 10,000 becomes like 12,000 at most. But as long as the tenant exercises the option to renew, then they're able to renew it. And then the landlord cannot say that no, I want to charge you 13,000. they cannot do it because it is very clear in the agreement that says that it is a maximum of, in this case, like 10%. So, if it's a maximum of 10%, as long as the tenant is willing to pay the additional 10%, then the landlord cannot say no to the renewal. So this is very important. All these clauses that we sometimes overlook, and then we just think that, it's just standard terms, and and if we don't look at all these things, then there will be big issues. So because we have actually had like a few big clients actually come to us, and then they have told us like, that they want to look at the agreement themselves and so on. So and like, the legal department has also like, reached out to us and say, can we not appoint a lawyer to do it? Can we review the agreement ourselves? Then we tell them, you can, but then you have to be very familiar with those clauses, because if you miss out something like this, so for example, like, going back to our example about, you put in R1 million in renovation fees, and then the next thing you know, the landlord terminates the agreement, and then you are left with like 1,000 in, 1,000, R1 million, like literally you make like a 1 million loss in a month. So yeah, all these are like the more important clauses, and then the rest of the clauses are a little bit more standard. Like, let's say, tenant is not supposed to do anything to the unit which will cause the insurance payable to be higher, to make the insurance policy void, and so on. So those are more common, but all these are like, I feel, are like the more important clauses that you should look out for. So, and then this is another real life example of a bank that has spent a lot of money on renovation. So let's say, a bank has really taken possession of a unit, and then they intend to stay there for, let's say, a couple of years, and so they actually spent a lot of money to renovate the unit. But as soon as they renovate the unit, then let's say, 2 years down the line, they decide to just move out from the unit. So the agreement, if the agreement actually states that this tenant has to reinstate the property to its original state and condition, if it just says to its original state and condition, it really means that let's say if you rented 2 years ago and it was in that condition, you have to like repaint the walls, if the tiles are broken, damaged and so on, you have to actually repair it to its original state and condition. So actually in a real life example, so I had this friend who actually came to me and say that that his bank is wanting to move out of a building, and then the agreement clearly states that it has to be to its original state and condition. So the landlord insisted that the bank, because they were in bad terms with the bank already, because I think the bank wanted to move out, and then they were they were going to lose a lot in monthly rental. So they actually told the bank that, no, you reinstate back to the original state and condition. Otherwise, otherwise we will take legal action against you. So the bank, in the end, they had to reinstate it to the original state and condition, and basically they spent a lot of additional monies. And not only that, because to reinstate to our original state and condition, it's not so easy, because imagine if a bank were to occupy like the entire building. Can you imagine like the time spent to reinstate the whole building? And let's say if they're paying, let's say like 1 million in rental, and let's say if they need like an additional few months to reinstate it, the cost is crazy, because if you don't reinstate the unit to its original condition, the landlord can actually keep imposing double rental on you until you reinstate it. So this is actually provided under the law. So it can be very detrimental to the tenant. So yeah, in this case, the bank lost a lot of money, I heard. So yeah, this is something that is important for you to look at and to just pay attention to causes like this. So let's say in this case, if you want to avoid such a case, then we can actually just put in a simple clause just to say that, fair wear and tear and other causes beyond the control of the tenant accepted. So meaning that, let's say if there's, just normal wear and tear, like let's say if the floor has a little bit of like scratches, the walls have a little bit of damage, due to normal wear and tear, like normal use of the unit, then in that case you actually don't need to repaint the walls. You don't have to redo the tile that has scratches and so on. But if it just says original state and condition, then unfortunately you have to reinstate it if the landlord requires you to. So I think these are the more important clauses which to look out for and so on. Yeah, so I won't keep you guys too long because it's a very late session. So maybe if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, maybe you can either ask it here or you can, message in the chat.
Yeah, Wai Leong, I think there is another question. Maybe you can have a look.
Oh, sure. So the question is, are property agents fully liable for the loopholes in the rental agreement as discussed if we are only using the standard clauses prepared by the agency? So in this case, because a lot of times like lawyers, to protect ourselves, even though we are using standard agreements, we will generally, send a copy of this tenancy agreement to both the landlord and tenant to ensure that they look at all these clauses and say that, they are okay with it. So even though that was not their intention, let's say if the landlord or the tenant, doesn't even look at the agreement and then just says, oh, I expect, that when the tenant moves out, he has to give me 3 months notice, for example. But let's say if the agreement says only 1 month notice, then tenant can move out. Then in that case, then because the agreement states that, then if the landlord has already looked at the agreement and he said, yeah, okay, I'm okay to sign, then they cannot hold anyone liable for it. But so the issue is that, let's say if the agreement was not to be sent to both parties, and then the landlord may have said, I wasn't aware of this agreement, then I have specifically told you that, I wanted 3 months notice, but you did not include it. Therefore, I want to, take action against you. I mean, they can potentially do that, but then of course also if they have nothing in writing, then it's also very difficult for them to claim it against the agency. So I would say that the safest approach would be to actually send the tenancy agreements or any other agreement, let's say even like sale and purchase agreement or any other agreement. Make sure that they read through it and they have actually given their green light. So if they have given a green light, then you are safe.
Okay. Wai Leong, I think there is another question. Maybe you can have a look.
Can we, also the question is, can we have standard tenancy agreement? Might be latest rules and regulations. Sorry, do you mean that whether we can provide you with a template, is it, of the standard tenancy agreement, which may contain the latest rules or terms, is it? Do you mean that?
Yeah, I think that is the question.
Okay.
To get the latest guideline from you, I think.
Sure. I mean, we do have like our standard tenancy agreements that you can actually adopt, but then especially the few points that I've raised just now, then it's important to ensure that those clauses are drafted to what the landlord or the tenant intention basically. So if their intention is to let's say renew it for a further year, but with a 10% maximum rental increase, then you have to ensure that all these are in the agreement. So actually for some of the agencies, we actually do help the agencies like look at their tenancy agreements, and we will like give some comments and so on. Or every time they have some questions, then they will just call me and send me a copy of the agreement, and then we'll just help them look at it. I mean, so if you have any issues that you face, then feel free to just reach out to me. I'm happy to help you look at the agreements without any charge.
Wow, thank you.
No
I think
problem.
I think there is another 2 question. Maybe you can have a look.
Sure, sure. Because I also understand that I mean, in this bad like MCO time, I mean, a lot of people, even if they are like, if they want to rent property, they're not willing to pay, fees for it. But agents, as agents, so you want to close the customer, then you want to, otherwise, um, you may lose this tenant to someone else. So I mean, we're happy to look at your agreements for free, lah.
So you do this exclusively for Oriental Group lah, bro.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
No problem. So okay. So the next question from June Ho is can foreigners buy individual property, or Red IC can buy individual property? Okay, so for foreigners, actually it depends on like which state you're referring to. So like for example in Selangor, foreigners can only buy like strata title properties. They can't buy individual title property. So how we distinguish between like individual title property or a strata title property is that older developments, we tend to have like let's say landed properties which are not gated and guarded. So like gated and guarded is like a more like a newer concept, right? I mean, not really new, but it's kind of like newer than the older development. So in this case where you have like an individual titled property, so for example, like in USJ area in Subang Jaya, there's a lot of individual titled property. So in those cases, then foreigners cannot buy because foreigners can only buy strata titled properties. So for example, like certain developments these days, they're actually landed, but they are also under a strata title. So landed strata titles, I think we see a lot lately. And then so basically it's like like a gated guarded development. And then but when we enter the development, we will notice that every single unit looks exactly the same. So because it's under strata title, even though it's a landed property, then foreigners can buy. So something with strata titled properties is that under Schedule H and so on, it clearly states that you are not allowed to what do you call it? You are not allowed to change the exterior of the unit. So meaning that you cannot just like break down the whole unit or demolish the unit and then just build like any unit you like, because unfortunately because it's strata titled property, so it has to be exactly the same as your neighbor's unit and so on. So yeah, so basically foreigners can buy Selangor properties individual title. Foreigners can buy only strata title properties, which also includes what they call landed strata properties.
But I think KL, they are able to buy individual title, right, bro?
Yeah, bro. For KL, no issue on this. It's only Selangor that has the strata title restricted kind of property.
What about Red IC can buy individual title? Red IC?
Red IC. Okay, this one I
think it's PR, right? You are referring to PR, permanent residence?
Red IC, I don't know if it's permanent resident or what. My client holding Red IC. You want to buy individual title property.
Red IC in Google stated is a Malaysia work permit. My PR is under permanent residency. Red IC with working permit.
Oh, okay. As I know, because permanent residents I mean, based on the National Land Code, permanent residents are also considered foreign nationals. So foreign nationals can always buy property in Malaysia, but then it's also restricted to the same kind of restriction, which is you can only buy like all this strata title properties and so on. So but it's also subject to foreign consent. So which means that you have to actually apply for foreign consent.
Okay. I think any more question for Wai Leong, because I think Lisa line is not good. So I'll be the MC tonight lah. I mean to help her out.
Yeah, then I think Nor asked Linda, she asked, not now tenancy agreement to suit with PKPD problem now outstanding payment. Yeah, that is something which is a problem. I mean, we do have a lot of like landlords coming to us and says that due to PKP my tenant's not paying, what can I do, and so on. So so if you are actually renting like an office or commercial premise, then in a way you are protected under the law. It does provide that let's say if you have any outstanding payments and so on, that time is given to you to pay lah. But unfortunately, if you are renting like a residential unit, then since it's not that you cannot use the house, right? You can still use the house. So therefore, I think based on this reasoning that you still have to continue paying your rental.
Wai Leong, maybe you can tell them that what is your specialized job task or for your firm, or anything that you can actually explain to them so they can know more about your firm.
Yeah. So actually, basically, I mean, since I was called to the bar in 2010, then I actually mainly do conveyancing, so we have been doing conveyancing matters. So basically, we cover things like sale and purchase agreement, tenancy agreements, loan agreements, and so on. So we usually do for most local banks and even some foreign banks as well in the past. So if you have any questions regarding all this, or you need assistance, to help you with your customer's unit for sale or for purchase, then you can look for us, and then we will give you the best rate lah.
Yeah, only for Oriental Group, you give the best rate.
Yeah, definitely. Because Delvin's a good friend.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe we have any question from the floor? Do you have any question? Because it's almost 10 o'clock already. So I think Lisa line got some problem. So anyone from the floor, do you have any questions for Wai Leong? Anyone? I think everyone got your number already. Maybe they will PM you directly lah.
Yeah, no problem. Because I mean, yeah, definitely. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to me like anytime. Then as long as I'm still awake, I will definitely reply you. Or if you have urgent matters, feel free to just give me a call. Even if it's like after office hours and thing. Then if you have any urgent matters, just call me anytime.
So even go yam cha also can go mama session. Okay, guys. Do you have any question? If no question, I think Lisa won't be here for the ending part. So I think that's all from us tonight. So if you have any things or any inquiry, you can actually direct liaise with Wai Leong. She will be there to actually assist us. So if there is no more question, then Wai Leong, you have anything to tell them or anything? No. Okay, all good from you?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay, so if we don't have any question, then thank you for attending the meeting tonight. So I'll see you guys for another meeting. So thank you, Wai Leong. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for coming today.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.